Assalamu alaikum girls. We are going to start with the first lesson of term 3. In term 3 for the first 3 to 4 weeks we will be covering theory topics and our first lesson is on the main components of computer systems. In this lesson we are going to look through hardware, software, memory and CPU. So let's get into it. The objectives that you are expected to learn at the end of this lesson is to understand the difference between hardware and software and be able to evaluate the use of various devices, both hardware and software. You should also be able to understand what internal memory is and you should be able to describe the difference between RAM and ROM. The success criteria for this lesson is that you must be able to define all of the terms we have discussed hardware, software, main memory and identify their examples. You should complete the class task at the end of the lesson and have it submitted on Edmodo. If you are done with the first two, you could go to PC Info on your computer and find the hardware and software details of your computer. I will give you extra information on this later on. Looking at all these pictures over here, what do all of these devices have in common? Can you get thinking? If you said these are all hardware devices, then you are spot on. All the images you see here are examples of hardware devices. Let's look further into hardware. Hardware are all the physical components which make up your computer system. For example, you have the CPU case over here, you have monitor, printer, the hard drive, keyboard, mouse. These are all physical components. Each item has its own specific role to play. For example, the monitor is to display your images, the printer is to print out your documents, and so on. Hardware components as a whole are divided into internal hardware and external hardware. So let's look at what this means. Internal hardware devices are those devices which are inside the case. And what's the case? The case is this box. This box over here, whatever hardware devices are packed inside this box are called the internal hardware devices. This includes your hard disk where your memory is stored, the RAM which speeds up your computer, your processor, the actual CPU chip, the motherboard as a whole, your CD drive, all of these are internal hardware devices because they are internal, they are inside the CPU case. In contrast, what are external hardware devices? External hardware devices are those which are external to the CPU case. For example, your keyboard, this sits outside. Your external memory card, any external hard drives, these are all external. So keep this in mind. Hardware devices are either internal or external. Some examples of internal hardware devices are CPU. It is the brain of the computer and it's the device that carries out all the calculations that needs to be done. The motherboard, we already saw the motherboard here as well. It is the circuit board on which all the other components are connected to. The network card, it is the card which provides your computer with network. Maybe you've had an example in the past where your Wi-Fi is not working, you are not getting internet on your computer, and you took your laptop for fixing. What the serviceman would have done is to replace your network card because this is what provides internet into your computer. Examples of some external hardware devices are as follows. First, we understand that they can be divided into three categories: input hardware devices, output hardware devices, and external storage devices. Input hardware devices are those which are used to input data into the computer. For example, mouse, the click goes inside the computer. When you type something on the keyboard, the keys go inside the computer. The microphone is used to put your voice inside the computer. A barcode scanner, the barcode is scanned inside the computer. What is the second type of external hardware device? Output output hardware devices. These are devices that output data from the computer to the outside world. For example, what the printer tries to do is to take the information from inside your computer and print it on a paper outside. What the speaker tries to do is to take information and the voice from inside the computer, put it outside in the world for you. The monitor is also output. The projector is also an example of an output hardware device. The third type of hardware device you have are the external storage devices. These provide external storage or backup solutions. For example, your external hard disk, your USB stick, CDs, external memory cards, these all provide you external storage. This is for extra storage, right? And we know these are external because these are outside the computer. All right. Coming into software. What is software? Software is the collection of all the instructions that can be run on your computer, and these are the instructions that tell the computer what it must do, right? So, is it something you can touch and feel like the hardware? No, you cannot touch and feel software because it's the set of collections that can be run. It's not a physical thing, it's a bunch of codes. Yes? For example, all the apps you are aware of: Word, document, Photoshop, PowerPoint, Firefox, these are all examples of software. Now the question is a hardware enough to run a computer? No, because if you don't have a Windows installed on your computer, which is a software, your monitor and CPU cannot do anything by itself. Is a software enough to run a computer? No, if you have all the programs but you don't have a monitor to see it, then what's the purpose of it? So we understand that for a computer system to be useful, it needs to consist of both hardware and software. All right. Now, what are the different types of software that we have? The first type is application software and the second type is system software. As you see, the name says application software. These are all the apps you are aware of. And each app is designed to allow you to do a specific task. For example, what does Word allow you to do? To type and edit documents. What does Photoshop, can it do photo editing? No. What does Photoshop allow you to do? To edit photos, increase the brightness, contrast, etc. Similarly, what does Firefox allow you to do, or Google Chrome? To view or browse websites, but this cannot help you do photo editing. So each app is a software that can do one specific task, and all of the things we discussed above are examples. In contrast, the other type of software is a system software. As the name suggests, it is involved in running the computer system. So for example, your operating system, which includes Windows, Linux, Mac, Android, all of these are examples of system software. Your device drivers, that is, when you connect a printer, the software that tells the printer what to do with the computer and tells the computer how can you communicate with the printer. This device driver is also an example of a system software. And all antivirus software that helps to maintain your computer, these are all examples of system software. Now, as to recap, your hardware is divided into two. Can you think what it is? Yes, internal hardware and external hardware. External hardware was further divided into three. Can you think and recall what that was? Yes, input devices, output devices, and storage devices. Then we had software. Software was divided into two: application software and system software. All right. Now we look at CPU and memory. When we try to list the main components of a computer system, the computer system is consisting of input device, output device, your secondary storage devices, and the processor and internal memory devices. So this fourth section is what we want to look at now, because as you can see, we've covered the first three already. Let's look at your CPU first. The CPU is this chip. This is like the size of maybe your little thumb or smaller than that. This is the part of the computer which interprets and executes all the commands. So it tells the computer which software to run, which software should get more preference or priority over the other, and so on. There is another name for CPU. It is also called the microprocessor. It basically consists of three parts: the control unit, arithmetic and logic unit, and the RAM. We will look into RAM further now. CPU is the brain of the computer. It's called the brain because all the searching, all the sorting, calculating, decision making, all of this is done by the CPU. This is why when your computer is running, your CPU gets really heated up because all the work is happening there. That's why you have a fan always attached next to the CPU. Then we are looking at the internal hard drive or main memory. This is the computer's main memory. All the software we were talking about earlier and the files, all of the files are stored here. The main advantage of your internal hard drive is that it has a very fast data transfer and access time. This means, for example, when you try to open a file, does it take forever to load? It pops up from the CPU and the memory right onto your screen, right? This is the fast transfer and access time. The internal hard drive actually consists of two things, the RAM and the ROM. Maybe some of you remember the full form of this from previous years. Try to recollect. The RAM is the random access memory. It is the part of the computer which always temporarily stores the instructions while your computer is running. This means that when your computer is switched off, all the data in the RAM is lost. You can see examples of some RAM cards over here. If you try to open up a spare CPU you have at home, you will be able to see these RAM chips. The other part of the internal main memory is the ROM, the read-only memory. The read-only memory is a built-in memory and you cannot change it. It's a read-only. It holds all the boot up instructions. Boot up means when your computer switches on for the first time and the black screen comes up, it tells the computer, come on, load the operating system, whether that's Windows, Mac, whatever it is. The ROM is non-volatile, which means that when your computer is switched off, this is not lost. For example, you switched on your computer today. You have Windows. Tomorrow you switch it on again. Is your Windows lost? No, because your Windows is stored in the read-only memory ROM. As an example of RAM, you are working on a file and you do not save the file, you close it. Then if you try to open a Word document again, will you see what was there before? No, because the RAM stored the information temporarily and it was lost when you closed it without saving. Now let's summarize by looking at what exactly is the difference between RAM and ROM. You should be able to think of these points from few minutes before. The data in RAM can both be stored and retrieved, whereas the data in ROM, read-only memory, can only be read. You cannot write to it. You cannot edit your Windows or your operating system. The RAM is volatile. Volatile means it is lost when the computer is switched off. The ROM is the opposite, non-volatile. It means that the data will remain even if the computer is switched off and restarted. You should be able to remember these two main differences. These are key differences from this chapter. Now pause the video and try to recap the differences between RAM and ROM, as this is important for your assessments. Alright girls, Now that you are back, your homework is that you will have an assignment posted on Edmodo. It's a PowerPoint file. You need to solve the questions given in the PowerPoint file and submit the assignment back to your teacher. I will show you the file you will be working with. This is your homework file. Download the file from Edmodo. Write your name here, your class here. This is question number 1. You need to fill in the blanks by dragging and dropping the correct answers. These boxes are draggable. You can put them to fill in the blanks. The second question is similar. You need to fill in the blanks using these boxes. In the third question, some devices are given here, some pictures are given here. Drag and drop them in the correct category and you should be good to go. Once you are done with this, submit this PowerPoint back on Edmodo. If you want to go the extra mile and you are done with your set homework, go to the About information on your Windows computer or laptop and you should be able to find the hardware details and the software details of your computer. If you want extra credit, take screenshot of this and send it as a message to your teacher, and this is your extension task for the day. I wish you all the best. Get started.